engines, controllers, they're just so dull. Like, come on, who uses engines and controllers to spin things anymore? Especially, not when these exist. All the cool kids, like me, use rotary thruster engines and cog systems to power their wheels. See, look, it's just infinitely cooler, am I right? And so I took this concept, and I made a car out of it. A car which not only has no engines, but also has no controllers, and has nothing wired to bearings at all. And it is this thing, which looks interesting, to say the least. If I get out the wiring tool, you can see there are quite a lot of bearings on it, because I had to use gear systems, and that just involves lots of bearings. But even at the front here, there's no steering. The only thing the seat goes to is these 4 buttons here. Well, one is a switch, and its only propulsion is from these thrusters. And you might be thinking, well, wouldn't it be easier just to get a car, destroy the engine, and shove some thrusters on the back of it? But yes, it would be, and that would be far too easy, so obviously I had to make it a little more difficult for myself, and have absolutely nothing connected to bearings at all, and the only thrust be from thrusters which are not providing force parallel to the direction of movement, which is a really dumb way of making a car. And so I made one. I'm going to be honest, it's not exactly very good. It has this amazing brake here, and I have it on the 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons because walls do nothing because there's no engine and there's no steering, and I have these bound to be IJKL because I want to be able to drive using WASD similar things. But yes, I have it also on IJKL, as you can see by the fact that for some reason 1, 3 and 4 are being written as I, J and L, even though I put it as 1, 3 and 4 first. It just apparently decides to override the primary and swap them over and make the numbers to secondary. We're just not going to question scrap mechanics' inability to count. But the steering, as you can see, is this amazingly efficient system here of we just shove the piston against the steering rack, which seems to be having some slightly buggy consequences today. It shouldn't be able to do this. There is no good reason for it to be able to turn on the spot like this, other than a minor suspension glitch. I'm sure it's fine. But as you can see, we have a rotary piston engine, not piston engine, a rotary thruster engine, and if I just disconnect the, oh maybe I shouldn't do that. Let's put it there, right, yes. If I just disconnect that, effectively I just press the clutch, I can, oh, it's still connected. Yeah, I can sort of spin this. It's actually still trying to power the car. That's kind of funny. It's not supposed to be doing that. Let's just put that back in where it belongs. But as you can see, there is a rotary thruster engine which goes down this drive shaft to these cogs at the back here, which go and just make the rear axle spin. And no, it is very much not fast. In fact, it is awfully slow. But it looks cool, doesn't it? You've got like a bit of car at the front, bit of house at the back. It's not exactly car shaped at the back. And then in the middle, we have a spinny thing on a slight angle because that makes it even cooler. It's not exactly powerful at all. It's an awful waste of thrust, really. It is inefficient with its use of thrust. But it works and it has no power bearings, and that's cool, right? Yes. Say yes, please. It also has a few minor issues. We're going to call them minor issues. You might be able to see it here. Might not be particularly obvious, but the camera is, I have it on free camera, and I am not steering. It is simply wobbling itself off to the right, because you've got a lot of rotationary force going into it. There's a lot of torque being produced by the spinny thing, and all of that torque is just being passed down one way back to the wheels. There is no counter torque, and what that results in is it just permanently tracks slightly to the right, which is kind of annoying. The only way to do that, the only way to counteract that would be to have basically just another set of thrusters somewhere else going the other way. And well, the first thing I built on a completely different concept was this thing here. If I just put the brake on because that's cool. This is not a ground vehicle. This is a flying machine. This is basically a quadcopter. It does this. You see where I got the idea for that, for the spinny thing there from, yes? The fact that I built this. That's the only similarity. This is just a fairly normal helicopter sort of thing, except that the way it controls is terrible. For some reason, I think it's probably just gyroscopic forces doing funny things. But like, it just, you try and control it one way and it just goes and decides it's going to tilt the other way. It is awful to drive and really, really hard to fly. And I'm going to just shove it here and ignore the fact that it's definitely not on the landing pad. It is definitely not on the landing. Well, it's close. It's like if the landing pad was next to the landing pad, it'd be on it. But anyway, back to the important thing. So as you can see, it has front suspension. This does not really help. It is not particularly useful. It causes more problems than it fixes, because sometimes it just gets slightly jammed. Another fairly major issue is that I literally can't add any more force to this thing, as in thrusters, if I move them into more optimum positions, because, as you may have guessed, these thrusters are not ideal. But even though I do something as simple as move them a bit further out, or move them a bit further sort of forwards, really, it creates too much torque, and this whole gear mechanism at the back just fails. And it can fail in a number of ways, all of which it likes to use, because this is scrap mechanics, so obviously things can clip through each other. This pipe bit here can just go through there. That's not the most major flaw. The most major flaw is this thing here, this piston, which, well, obviously I've got a square build grid, so to make this on an angle, I could just, if I was using controllers, I'd have a controller on there pointing that down a bit, but obviously there's a piston pushing it down, and pistons are not massively strong, so if there's too much force going this way, because of, well, the way things work, this is the rear of the car, that has to be pushing down on there, which means that the opposite reaction force, because this game does actually simulate physics kind of, pushes this up against this piston, which is on max speed, but that doesn't really make it strong enough because pistons are just in general quite weak. And so that means that if you put too much force into it, it just pushes up against this, and the whole piston array thing with the thrusters just goes and shuffles itself up, and it doesn't work. But that's definitely not even the most major flaws with the vehicle, because the most major flaws of the vehicle is this. I put it on my lift and it looks really dumb because bits are inside each other. And then it just goes and squishes itself out and makes a large clanking sound. And that was the most successful remover from my lift I've ever had. The reason it does that is because there are these pistons here going through here, so that the thrusters can clip through it and it can hold the two bits together. And of course that means I have to have another one on here, because if this was longer, then this would end up being stuck on the other side of there. It would cause all sorts of issues, and so the only way to solve this is by doing it like this. This raises more issues, which are not going to be demonstrated now. I'm trying to demonstrate how, like, apparently never. Before, it was doing it every time. Where this thing here, instead of going down, would just randomly decide it's going to glitch up and go up through the roof of the vehicle. And it doesn't work when it does that. What if I, like, drop it from a height? I don't know how this is going to make any difference. No, I've unintentionally fixed something somehow, and I don't know what I did. But sometimes you take it off the lift and it just doesn't work properly. But as you can see up hills, it's not exactly quick. You try and go up a hill and it's like, yep, I've heard what you want to do, I will get around to it in a little while. and then you go down the other side of the hill, and it just goes, "Nyum, time to become spinny thing," and just starts going really fast. I said that it's not even going very fast. Sometimes it just goes so fast it can't control itself. And then there's another hill, and it's just like, And it like has these positions that it basically seems to snap to because of the way the drive cogs work at the back. It goes and pushes it around, and it can sort of jump to the next bit. Although I've actually managed to find a hill it can't climb. Wow. It can't even climb this hill. Fortunately, Scrap Mechanic Physics says everything has effectively no grip, so we can just turn around on the spot like that. But if you watch that, it goes and it gets sort of stuck, and then pushing a cog round, and then jumps to where it can do the next cog. Obviously in real life, when you have cogs and things, they have a lot more than 4 teeth on them normally, but square build grid, 4 teeth is the maximum we can have. But this is just your fairly average hill. Like, it's just like, no. Hills, no thanks. It just does not want to climb hills. That's a rock. Hey look, it would be really helpful if we had a reverse about now, because we are literally just stuck. It's just got itself stuck on a rock. Wait a second, no, we're actually just climbing up the rock as you do. Now I've broken it. Stop it. It's suspension glitch to the front steering system. There we go. Hey look, I got round the rock. What happened there was, at the front suspension on this here, there's a little bolt thing on the end of this, and it occasionally just decides if you steer sharp enough that it's going to phase through here because the suspension is non-physical. Come on, you can get up the tiny little bump that's not even a hill. Oh yeah, this thing also beaches itself really easily because the thrusters go down lower than that block slightly, which means it has less than a block of clearance in the middle of the vehicle. You know, that bit where you kind of want more than a little bit of clearance. Oh yes, and the turning circle. We're just not going to talk about the turning circle. Yeah, we don't mention the turning circle. This is not something that needs to be publicly discussed. Hey look, I broke the suspension at the front again, temporarily. So it's just not even turning. I guess we can just slam on the brakes and then fly away in the awful thing that I made, because everything I make turns out to be awful, apparently. Yeah, like I press the back arrow and it decides, okay, so we're going to tilt some other way. Hey look, I landed it on the platform. Such cool. Cool, like this thing. Well, like this. This bit's cool. This bit's cool. Ish. Rest of it functions badly. That sums up everything I do. Functions, kinda. Ish. Yeah, not really, does it?